Okay, so I think now might be a good time to talk about the way our file is set up. Right now, if I look in my Explorer, we'll see that I have my AMPI assembly file, and that is literally all I have, just an assembly file. And if I were to email this assembly file over to a colleague, then he could open it up, and all of these parts would come with it. But there are a lot of reasons why we're going to want to save these individual parts as external part files. It's just going to make our life a lot easier in a lot of different ways. So what we should do is with each of these, notice that right now this lens file has a square bracket around either side of it. It says square bracket lens caret AMPI assembly. This means that the lens exists within AMPI assembly, and the square bracket means that it is an internal virtual component. If I right-click this and click Save Part in External File and hit OK, then all of a sudden those square brackets go away, as does the caret AMPI assembly, because this lens document is now an external file. And if we look in my folder here, you'll see I now have my assembly and the lens solid part file. Now this is fantastic. There are lots of reasons why this is a great way to go, and I definitely recommend working like this as much as possible. Spend time getting used to it. But just be aware that this is now not going to be a self-contained file. If I email someone this assembly file, they won't be able to see anything in it unless I also send them the lens file. They need both in order to have access to it. I'm going to show you an easy way to do that in just a second. But let's go through and do that for each one of these. I'm going to select these all, right-click, Save Part in External File, do them all at once, hit OK. Now all those square brackets go away and we're left with external part files for each one of those. Now, if I wanted to send this file off to somebody else, I could just select all of this stuff and attach that to an email and send it, but that's a little bit messy. Plus, if I forget something somewhere, then they might not have access to it. So if I come back to SolidWorks and go File, Pack and Go, this is an incredibly powerful feature. Pack and Go is fantastic, and you need to really go through this at some point and look at all the details, because there is a ton that we can do with this in terms of renaming parts, replacing text, all kinds of cool stuff you can do in this dialog. But all we care about at this point is this button right here, Save to Zip File. Click that, and then I would just choose a folder, hit Save, look in my folder, and look at that. We have now an AMPI assembly zip, and if I open that up, all of those files are within it. Even if these files had been scattered all over my hard drive, the Pack and Go process would take all of those and put them into a single zip file that I can then email to somebody really easily. Nice, right? Okay, so now that these are external, there's a lot we can do much more easily. So for example, take a look at this focus ring. If I drag that, it moves around, right? Now this one too, if I drag that off, it's going to move. And if I take the camera body, I can drag that away. And everything just kind of moves really straightforwardly. Now if I drag one of these original two pieces, it says the selected component is fully defined. It cannot be moved. Well, it can't be moved because it has some mates holding it in place. Now, we've already played a little bit with mates in our scissor demo, but we haven't played with this one exactly. Come over here and look at the file names of lens and lens ring, the ones that won't move, and then look at the ones for focus ring camera body and focus ring 2. Those will move. Look, they've got this little hyphen to the left of them. That hyphen means it's a floating component that is not fully defined. That means it's a component that's not fixed in space, and it doesn't have constraints holding it down. It doesn't have mates holding it in any particular place. Whereas these two are fully defined, so it gets rid of that little hyphen. Now if I expand that lens ring down, you'll notice that there's a folder called Mates in AMPI assembly. If I drop that down, you see I have an in-place mate for this. So if I click on that in-place mate and hit Delete, yes, I want to delete it. Yes, I want to delete it. Then all of a sudden, I get that little hyphen to the left of my lens ring, and I can move it. Same thing for the lens over here. If I expand that down, expand that, we've got an in-place mate, delete, Yes, I want to delete it. And now this guy floats too. Everybody's floating all over the place. What a mess. How are we going to put this back together? All right, stay tuned.